President Yoon Suk Yeol has called for a thorough investigation into a civilian-launched drone into North Korea and instructed the related authorities to preserve trust between the two Koreas. A severe cold snap has hit the entire nation, with feels-like temperatures dipping as low as minus 18 degrees Celsius in Seoul today. The bitter cold will reach its peak on Wednesday and Thursday. The amount of U.S. stocks held by Korean retail investors has risen to an all-time peak. In a response to encourage investment in the domestic capital market, the government will offer tax incentives to long-term investors in its National Growth Fund. At a cabinet session today, President Yoon Suk Yeol focused on national security and foreign policy, denouncing a recent unauthorized civilian drone incursion into North Korea and warning such actions are akin to starting a war. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
President Lee Jae-myung opened Tuesday's cabinet meeting by strongly condemning alleged civilian drone launches into North Korea, calling them, quote, an act of war.
이 전쟁 개성이나 마찬가지죠. 북한 지역의 총쏜 거하고 똑같잖아요.
His remarks came after Pyongyang claimed it had shot down drones flown from South Korea once last September and again earlier this month. 2 civilian suspects are now under investigation by a joint military police task force. Local media reports say the suspects worked for the presidential office under the former Yoon Suk Yeol administration. President Lee has ordered a thorough investigation and is calling for strict punishment for those responsible. He also urged the defense minister to tighten loopholes in the military surveillance and monitoring systems.
그리고 남북 사이에 이런 신뢰가 깨지지 않도록 또 적대의 감정이 제고되지 않도록 최선으로 잘 관리하시기 바랍니다.
Tuesday's cabinet meeting also reviewed follow-up measures from President Lee's recent visits to China and Japan. The focus was on ways to better preserve and manage the Korean provisional government in Shanghai, the government in exile established by independence activists during Japan's colonial rule. Lee visited the site during his trip to China 2 weeks ago.
대한민국 정부의 일종의 발상지 아닙니까? 이 중요한 사진은 역사적 시설물인데 이거 너무 오랫동안 방치해놨던 것 같습니다.
The Foreign Ministry says it will work with the Chinese government to establish formal preservation agreements or memorandums of understanding to ensure long-term institutionalized cooperation. The Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs plans to secure additional units of the complex to open more exhibition halls and souvenir shops. Now, meanwhile, looking back on his trip to Japan, President Lee said he and Prime Minister Takaichi hope to hold their next summit in his hometown of Andong as part of their back-and-forth leader-level diplomacy. Their latest talks were held in Nara Prefecture, Prime Minister Takaichi's hometown, last week. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is officially classifying the 2024 knife attack on President Lee Jae-myung as an act of terrorism. The National Counter-Terrorism Committee, chaired by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, made the decision on Tuesday afternoon. This marks the first recognized terror case since the Anti-Terrorism Act was enacted in 2016. President Lee, then leader of the main opposition Democratic Party, was stabbed in the neck while visiting the southern port city of Busan. Police said the attacker, a man in his 60s, tried to kill Lee to prevent him from becoming president. Now, the suspect was sentenced to 15 years in prison. With Tuesday's designation, authorities say they will get to the bottom of the incident, raising the possibility of a full re-investigation. The cabinet today approved a bill for a second round of special counsel investigations tied to former President Yoon Suk Yeol. They involve insurrection charges over Yoon's martial law bid, various allegations involving his wife Kim Gun-hee, and an investigation into the death of a Marine. The probes can last as long as 170 days, and as many as 251 personnel can be deployed. Now, the probes will likely to be extended to June when a local election is scheduled. The ruling Democratic Party passed a bill last week saying it intends to look into new allegations as well as cases that need further investigation. Now, in other news, a bitter cold snap has hit the entire nation, driving temperatures down and sending people out bundled head to toe. To tell us more, we have our Park Kwon-woo out in Central Seoul. Kwon-woo, you've been out since this afternoon. How cold is it at this moment?
So, Tommy, I must say, stay indoors. So I can say that for sure because the freezing cold I've been feeling for over an hour as I stand here in Gangnam Station. And it's around minus 8 degrees Celsius at the moment, but the feels like temperature is way under around minus 10 degrees Celsius. And that comes as today marks Daehan, or the last of the 24 solar terms in Korea, traditionally considered one of the coldest periods of the year, and temperatures have plunged to below minus 10 degrees Celsius. In some regions, they have even dropped in minus 20, and due to the sudden cold snap, people, especially commuters, are wrapped up in their extra thick winter gear.
It suddenly got really cold, so I had to wear a fleece underneath my clothes. I'm worried because a lot of people are catching the flu at the moment, and it doesn't seem to go away easily.
So we've traveled around. We just came from Vietnam. We went to Bangkok, so it was very hot. So coming here, we had to purchase gloves. We had to purchase hats.
Yeah.
It's been very, very changing in temperature from where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Kwon-woo, it is one freezing day. So what's the main cause of today's cold spell and how long is it expected to stay here?
Right, so a meteorologist I spoke to said this is all happening because of the high pressure system, and that's behind all of the sudden cold. And the meteorologist also says that this cold is to last throughout the week.
A cold continental high-pressure system is affecting the Korean peninsula, allowing cold air from higher levels of the atmosphere to move southward. This pattern is expected to continue through the week, keeping temperatures below freezing nationwide.
And they added that the public is urged to remain cautious as the increased use of heating appliances combined with strong winds and dry conditions has raised the risk of fires. And as strong winds will make it feel even colder, older adults and those with weaker immunity are advised to limit outdoor activity and minimize outdoor work, of course, taking extra precautions to protect their health from the low temperatures.
Kwon-woo, and local authorities are also on high alert. What are some of the measures taken to prevent accidents from happening?
Right, so the Labor Ministry has urged construction sites to adjust their working hours and to prevent cold-related illnesses. And also, Vice Minister Yoon Suk Yeol inspected a construction site in Seoul today, stressing the need to follow the government's 5 cold weather safety guidelines, including wearing warm clothing, providing heated shelters and water, adjusting work hours, and calling emergency services if needed. And the ministry warns that sudden drops in temperatures can raise blood pressure and increase the risk of fatal accidents, calling on site managers to take preemptive measures to protect workers during cold wave alerts. And that's all I have for you now. Back to you, Dami.
All right, Kwon-woo, thanks a lot for the report. Do stay warm and safe. Both the ruling and opposition parties are facing a hectic week, ranging from hunger strikes to growing internal party tensions. To take a closer look at the key political movements at the National Assembly this week, we have our political correspondent An Sung-jin here in the studio. Welcome back, Sung-jin.
Thank you for having me, Dami.
So, Sung-jin, the biggest issue this week was supposed to be the confirmation hearing for the nominee of a minister for budget planning and budget. Now, it seems like it didn't go as planned, right?
You're right, Tammy. So the ruling and main opposition parties clashed on Monday as the National Assembly Finance Committee failed to move forward with a confirmation hearing for Lee Hae-woon, nominee for Minister of Planning and Budget, over a dispute on the submission of requested materials, notably with Lee absent. The committee was supposed to convene at 10 a.m., but quickly became mired in partisan confrontation. Now, the PPP described the hearing as meaningless with a lack of cooperation, noting that only 15% of the requested materials have been submitted by the agreed-upon deadline. Members of the PPP called for an adjournment. The DP, on the other hand, urged the committee to proceed, arguing that hearings have been held in the past despite incomplete material and that the public should be allowed to assess the nominee. However, the proposal was rejected, and E, on the other hand, argued that everything has been handed out based on the requirements, and the deadline to adopt the confirmation hearing report is approaching on Wednesday.
Now, it's been a busy week for the ruling Democratic Party as well. Sung-jin, now how have developments unfolded there in the ruling party?
Right, so we know that former DP leader Kim Byung-gi has voluntarily withdrew from the party on Monday, 1 week after receiving an expulsion decision from the party's ethics committee. Though he had earlier called on the party leadership to expel him directly, he submitted his resignation later the same day, only 3 hours after the press conference. Now, internal tensions have also been rising within the DP over plans to reintroduce a one-person, one-vote system that would give equal weight to ballots cast by party members and delegates. Critics have argued that this system would favor the current leader, Chung Cheong-rae. Now, despite the backlash, the party leadership said it will proceed as planned with a survey of party members scheduled this week and a final vote by the Central Committee set for early next month.
Now, what about the People Power Party, Sung-jin? It seems the chairman seems very determined to get his message through, right?
Right, so he is very firm, just as you mentioned, Tommy, as the People Power Party chairman Jang Dong-hyuk is now on the 6th day of a hunger strike, calling for special prosecutors to investigate alleged unification church ties and nomination-related donations. He added through a message on social media that the lack of response from the DP suggests that the corruption is serious enough to destabilize the administration. Now, meanwhile, the PPP said it has received more than 17,000 proposals in a public contest to rename the party. According to a party statement, the total number of proposals adding to the ideas previously submitted by registered party members exceeded 35,000. The party added that commonly recurring keywords included people, freedom, republic, and future, among others.
Sounds like another intense week at the National Assembly. Sung-jin, thanks for the coverage.
Thanks for having me, Tommy.
U.S. stock holdings invested and held by Korean retail investors have come to a record high within the first 2 weeks of 2026. And local authorities are laying out tax incentives to spur local market investment. Our Kim Junong has this report.
South Korean retail investors are ramping up overseas stock purchases despite currency pressure. Data from the Korea Securities Depository show the holdings surpassed 250 trillion won, or about $170.5 billion as of last Thursday, up nearly $6.9 billion in just 2 weeks. As overseas stock buying accelerates, the authorities are rolling out tax incentives to draw investor funds back home. The Ministry of Economy and Finance unveiled a package of tax incentives on Tuesday, aimed at boosting the domestic capital market. As part of the plan, the government will offer tax incentives to long-term investors in its National Growth Fund, set to be launched in the first half of the year. Investors who maintain their investment for at least 3 years will qualify for income tax deductions of up to 40%, with dividends taxed separately at 9%. Details were also spelled out for reshoring investment accounts. Investors who sell overseas shares and reinvest the proceeds in domestic stocks through these accounts will receive temporary tax breaks on capital gains. Despite the incentives, experts see a limited short-term impact as state-backed funds are geared toward long-term investments, while overseas stocks attract investors seeking quick gains.
Most retail investors in U.S. markets focus on short-term gains, which makes government-led policies less appealing. For these measures to work, the government needs to maintain a consistent policy stance and build trust that the market is worth investing in.
The government is also weighing the introduction of higher leverage investment products, loosening the current 2x cap to steer risk-hungry investors back from overseas markets to domestic stocks. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
E-commerce giant Coupang has been under public scrutiny over its recent data breach. But this has created an unexpected opening for rivals. As consumers look for alternatives, competitors are seizing the opportunity with aggressive promotions to capture market share. Kim Do-yeon reports.
The controversy over Coupang's massive data breach affecting 33.7 million of its customers and its retribution method has shifted the dynamics of the online retail sector. It has translated into a direct opportunity for rivals who are now rolling out massive coupon packs and incentives to lock in these drifting consumers. SSG.com has seen immediate gains. From January 1st to the 19th, the average number of new daily visitors skyrocketed by 240% compared to last year, according to the company. This traffic is converting into actual sales. Between January 8th and the 19th, first-time orders surged 70% on year, driven largely by the new membership, which locks in customers with high reward rates. To sustain this momentum, the company is aggressively expanding its infrastructure, planning to increase its delivery hubs from 60 to 90 by the first half of the year. Market Curly is also a primary beneficiary. In December, the company says that monthly active users hit a record 4.49 million, a 34% jump from the previous year. The number of daily active users on January 12th was up 47% compared to the day breach occurred in late November. Curly projects a 20% spike in its gross merchandise volume for December. Fashion platform Mushinsa is also riding the wave, reporting a 46% increase in daily new subscribers during the first 2 weeks of the month as it rolled out coupons. And now the company announced another series of coupons with an illustration resembling Coupang's logo. Experts say this redistribution of market share could lead to a healthier industry structure.
A market dominated by a single player is rarely desirable. If this opportunity allows competitors to step up and a healthy competitive structure is established, it will ultimately lead to lower prices and higher quality services for consumers.
The market shift comes as Coupang was estimated to have more than a quarter of the country's e-commerce market up until last year. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has announced that the current House of Representatives will be dissolved this Friday, with a snap election held on February 8th. Now, this risky move is aimed at proving that the government would be the choice of the sovereign public. Yoon reports.
During a press conference on Monday, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi announced plans to dissolve the Japanese House of Representatives this Friday, January 23rd. Which would mark Takaichi's first electoral test since becoming Japan's first female prime minister in October.
Today, as Prime Minister, I have decided to dissolve the House of Representatives on January 23rd. I stake my position as Prime Minister on this decision. I ask the people of Japan to directly judge whether they can entrust the governance of the nation to Sanae Takaichi.
This would trigger a snap general election for all 465 seats in the lower house of parliament, which will be announced on January 27th, followed by voting to be held on February 8th. This plan for a swift election with the country's shortest ever 16-day campaign period is to minimize the impact on economic policies affecting livelihoods and rising prices. Addressing concerns that the Takaichi cabinet has not yet been tested in an election where the public chooses the government, the move is aimed at asking the public to decide to show support for the administration. Takaichi wants voter support for higher spending, tax cuts, and a new security strategy expected to accelerate Japan's defense buildup. Her policy promises a 2-year halt to an 8% consumption tax on food. She also said her spending plans would create jobs, boost household spending, and increase other tax revenues. Takaichi was elected Japan's first female prime minister on October 21st last year by lawmakers in a parliamentary vote. The snap election, intended to solidify her position as leader, comes with its own risks. Since its foundation in 1955, the Liberal Democratic Party has dominated Japanese politics, but recently lost ground amid frustration with the economy, demographic decline, and social discontent. Her immediate predecessor Shigeru Ishiba also announced the snap election shortly after taking office, which resulted in one of the LDP's worst ever results, costing the party its majority in the lower house. The February 8th election will test Japan's voter sentiment on higher government spending at a time when the public's top concern remains the rising cost of living. 이은진, Arirang News.
Now on the culture front, Korean musicals celebrated a year of remarkable achievements this past Monday with an annual ceremony to honor the best. Our Jo Young-eun was there.
The Korean Musical Awards celebrated its 10th anniversary in Seoul on Monday and also marked a historic high for the number of submitted productions for this year's event. The grand prize went to The Man in Hanbok, while Maybe Happy Ending and Granny Poetry Club won in the Best Musical Awards category.
We will be back soon with an encore performance, reborn as The Man in Hanbok, with an even more evolved presence.
The Bridges of Madison County earned both Best Actor and Best Actress honors, awarded to Park Eun-tae and Cho Jung-eun. Among the standout works was Behind the Moon, a one-man musical about Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins. The writer describes standing on stage as part of the creative team as an especially meaningful moment.
When I was studying musical theater in New York, my professors often said, people should go to Korea rather than Broadway. That was about 10 years ago. Today, with the rise of so many outstanding original Korean musicals, I believe we can say that with confidence.
Korean musicals saw remarkable growth over the past year, marked by a surge in productions, rising audience engagement, and increasing recognition both at home and abroad.
As Korean musicals mark their 60-year history, they are continuing to evolve in dynamic ways. A wide range of original productions is being developed, and many are actively expanding overseas.
Since the curtain first rose in 1966, original Korean musicals have undergone 6 decades of rapid and dynamic growth. From small local productions to globally recognized original works, the industry has continued to evolve at a remarkable pace. As Korean musicals celebrate their 60th anniversary, the industry is now poised to take on greater global challenges, expanding its reach on the international stage. Jo Young-eun, Arirang News.
In central Seoul is a Yongsan district, wherein lies the War Memorial of Korea, which recently witnessed its number of foreign visitors triple in just 3 years. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
From 170,000 in 2022 to more than 520,000 in 2025. That is more than a threefold increase in the number of foreign visitors to the War Memorial of Korea. Worldwide interest in South Korea's culture has spilled over into K-history, and many foreign officials' visits to the War Museum pushed the increase in numbers.
Last year, about 1,500 VIPs from 105 countries visited the memorial and found it very helpful in learning about Korea. Participant nations in the Korean War also said the exhibition was deeply moving in its powerful presentation of their history.
General Xavier Brunson, the commander of U.S. Forces Korea, recently visited as well, hinting at the possibility of including visits to the War Memorial of Korea in educational programs for U.S. service members stationed here.
It would foster pride and a sense of duty, reaffirm the Korea-U.S. blood alliance, and greatly strengthen the morale and mission awareness of the U.S. Forces Korea.
As if to show the boosted interest in Korean history, there were many foreign visitors even in the freezing cold.
I've been recommended by some colleagues at work to come here. I think it's particularly important to learn about the history of the country.
Many foreign visitors' main interest lies in the Korean War, during which General MacArthur's Incheon landing successfully ended the North's occupation of the South and led to the current division of the Korean Peninsula with DMZ in the middle. Another exhibition room that draws attention is the section explaining how UN member states dispatched troops and medical units to support the Republic of Korea.
Through detailed accounts of the roles played by troops and medical teams from 22 UN member countries, visitors can learn about their own nation's contributions. This helps them feel a deeper connection to Seoul and a shared sense of history.
As global interest in Korea continues to grow, the War Memorial of Korea is emerging as a key destination, serving as a powerful gateway to understanding the country's past. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
A strong cold snap has arrived with the seasonal marker Daehan, the coldest time of year. Seoul's morning temperature plummeted to minus 11.8 degrees Celsius, making it the coldest morning so far this winter. With cold wave warnings in place across the country, this cold spell will continue for a while. The morning temperature in Seoul will drop further to minus 13 degrees tomorrow, and even during the daytime, it will stay below freezing in many regions. As strong winds are blowing, it will feel even colder than the actual temperatures. Daejeon will also start off below freezing at minus 11 degrees, and Gyeongju at minus 10 degrees tomorrow morning. Daily highs will only rise to minus 5 degrees in Seoul, minus 4 degrees in Chuncheon. For the time being, snow and rain clouds will be seen frequently over the Jeollado, Chungcheongnam-do provinces, and Jeju Island. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.